There we go. Okay, so we do have a couple new faces on the call today, including our presenters. So if you have not joined us previously, why don't you go ahead and give us just a quick introduction, your name, kind of where you're working, and what your interest is in the surveys, or what kind of survey work you're doing, and then we'll get to our presentation.
Hello everyone. I'm Max. I'm a healthcare data analyst and a vocabulary engineer as well. And I've recently done an implementation of T1DX, or type 1 diabetes exchange vocabulary, into the OMOP CDM, prepared all the necessary files, and this small vocabulary is ready to be ingested in the whole structure. So I would like to share this with the community, because it's have like a survey structure. There are questions and answers format for the entities here. So yeah, I would like to share and take a feedback. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for coming on short notice. I'm glad you're able to join us. Basically, Max wrote me last week, and I was like, "Hey, can you join this meeting?" And he's like, "Yep." So appreciate you being able to join us quickly. Anyone else new to the call?
Yeah, I would like to introduce myself. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Polina. Why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So also glad to join this working group, and I was a part of Odyssey vocabulary team since 2017 till 2021. From that part of time, I'm also a member of vocabulary team, but external part of this team. And surveys in general, my personal interest, because I was working on PPI vocabulary at the very beginning of survey representation in the OMOP CDM. And now I'm supporting Maxim with T1DX vocabulary implementation. We think that this terminology is very important for the community because it's about diabetes, and a lot of institutions using this data. So it's crucial to add this vocabulary to the OMOP CDM, but again, it depends on the community feedback and how this working group react to this contribution. So we'll see. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Ella, did you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Nico. I was here already. Just
okay. That's what I thought. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Eric.
Okay. Hey everybody, my name is Eric Williams. I am currently a lead informaticist at Leary Children's Hospital. I'm also partnering with Maxim and Polina, the entire the SARS health team, on standardizing the T1D exchange vocabulary into OMOP. And Max will get more into it in his presentation, but overall what we're doing is we're standardizing the T1D exchange data with OMOP in order for us to be able to open up this this software that we created known as the Diabetes Data Doc, to not just people who are a part of the T1D exchange. The T1D exchange currently works with over 64 pediatric organizations in the United States, but we want to be able to open up this software to adult organizations who care for people with type 1 diabetes, and as well as research institutions and other types of organizations that may be doing type 1 diabetes research. So we feel like it is important to be able to broaden the horizon to not just limit the this software to those 64 organizations, but to thousands of organizations who may be doing this great work in such a very niche industry.
Terrific. Thank you. All right.
Yep. Hi again. I'm Dennis. I'm a senior data scientist and data analyst, healthcare data analyst in Cyprus. I worked with Polina until 2021 in vocabulary team, and now helping Maxim as well with T1DX. So we'll be glad to participate.
Terrific. Thank you. I think that's everyone new. Nobody else. I don't think we have any other new people on the call. So Maxim, do you want to go ahead and get started? You can share your slides.
Yeah, 1 second. Share screen. Slideshow. Could you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would like to represent the T1D exchange vocabulary. As we've already said, as Eric said, it's a survey vocabulary that consists of question-answer format. It has data from more than 60 organizations. So here we have also a small schema. It's a predictable amount of spendings of people that are considered to be in the nearest future. So as we can see, the spendings are increasing, will be increased. And also, yeah, we would like to we formatted the T1Z exchange to CDM format, and we'll share you the structure and other things related to this vocabulary. So T1DX exchange has 4 modules related to different types. One of them is diabetes disease, diabetes insulin, diabetes monitoring, and diabetes glucose. Among these 4 modules, we have stored more than is about 70 questions, and also 234 answers spreading among these questions. And as we've developed in this vocabulary, we found that only 13 questions and 58 answers have standard equivalents, and rest of them are non-standard, so they have to be standardized. The general structure is, as I said, module that have relationship IDs module of, then questions among 2 main domains, observation and measurement, and they have answers with a relationship has answer, or also there could be free text values if we talking about diabetes glucose, for example, as shown at the table. Is just examples of what questions we have among the different modules. For example, question, is the patient using a connected pen as of the latest visit, and different answers regarding this question: yes, no, unknown. For example, as I said, for diabetes glucose, we have free text values, so we can store something like continuous glucose monitoring systems time above range for this range, and store it like in numeric values here to use it for research. And also we have lots of data regarding the different devices like blood glucose monitors, continuous glucose monitoring systems, insulin pens or pumps that have answers very specific to these devices. Here we have a general workflow. It is very common for the whole like vocabularies. We've developed all the stages and already prepared a pull request and also shared with the community during our email, so everyone like could follow these steps to like creating this vocabulary. So it's we have prepared like manual tables, concept manual, concept relationship manual, a concept synonym manual that could be uploaded to every database, undergo the load station generic update process, and then after formulating, we could undergo the QA checks. Now we've tested it, everything works fine, no issues like found. Also, regarding the structure of the vocabulary, we've built a concept ancestor for it. It also creates without any issues, collecting metadata, and also it can be, after the whole process and run, it can be used by different people. Here is just a small like templates of formal ETL logic, how we could store different entities among the vocabulary into the standardized OMOP tables. For example, here we have like basic structure for measurement. We have measurements such as a continuous glucose monitoring system, high glucose reading percentage. We have answer for it, for example, in free text, as I said, and also units. And this is an example of how we could fill all the necessary measurement tables using this data that we have in a source. In general, I also have several examples here regarding regarding the observation. For example, the same approach that with all the necessary fields could be populated using this vocabulary, and also we, in general, we could populate observation and measurement tables as for questions and for answers that are connected to the sensors. We could also populate device exposure table because we have devices here, and also some procedures because we have procedures as a values in several cases. Yeah, and I think it's the like last slide. It's the questions that we have to a survey work group team for some concepts. We would like to know: do we have, for example, store such conditions in in any of possible formats, because as we've looking through the documentation, we found that, for example, answers like yes for questions, do you have, for example, diabetes type 1, it is a good approach to store it using either a fact relationship table or concept relationship table to connect conditions from a questions to a originated condition. Yeah, so we have like very close but maybe a bit complex cases. For example, do we have to store such concepts like arterial pH value during diabetic ketoacidosis? Do we have to store diabetic ketoacidosis as a lookup table with a connection to a condition? And also I've shown several cases where we have similar cases. And that's that we would like to discuss. And I think that like it's the last slide we have. It's like all useful links. I've also shared this presentation with the community, so everyone could go through it, and also share feedback or comments to my personal email. And I also will be glad to provide answers if someone has a questions to it. And I think, yeah, that's all from the presentation. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thanks, Maxim. This was very, very helpful. Are you okay with me including your presentation on the survey wiki? Or like we have an Odyssey wiki that we include well, it's recorded anyway, but if it's nice to have the presentation because then if somebody wants to use the links, they can do that. Is anybody concerned with sharing the slides?
Yeah, sure. I think it's not a problem. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. I have some questions, but I also want to give everybody else on the call a chance. So I will wait and see if anyone else has some thoughts or questions they want to share. Okay, maybe it's maybe it's just me. I'll get it started. Can you go back to the slide with the vocabulary like workflow?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to understand is what sort of is the difference between the vocabulary build process and the ETL process?
For now, we've prepared like the whole vocabulary build process. The ETL process is in progress. We've shared on the next slides. We've shared like brief examples of how it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still in progress. So for now we have like built just a whole vocabulary and examples of how it could be stored in the mock tables.
And technically, vocabulary build populate vocabulary-related tables such as concept, concept relationship, concept ancestor, concept synonym, while ETL populating event tables like condition occurrence, drug exposure, measurement observation, and other related tables. So once we have this vocabulary in Athena, people who are working with these data can use stable identifiers, concept ID, to populate their ETL because now they are using custom concepts for each site locally. Yeah, and
that was going to be my next question, actually. So like you said, you worked in the early days of the PII project. We know that there's a lot of bespoke vocabularies that were added to Athena. So are you going through like a process with a vocabulary group to get vocabulary added to become standard, or like how is this process of adding vocabulary different than those sort of bespoke efforts?
So the usual process, as I'm familiar with, is to first of all create an issue on the GitHub, vocabulary GitHub, where you create describe your need, why you need this vocabulary, who are the people who are using this vocabulary, and all general information about it. And we did it. Actually, Eric did it. Let me just share with you this issue. So it was in January. And then next up is to develop the load stage process, what you see in the step 3. It's a script which take your source data and put it into the vocabulary staging tables. And then you run generic update. It's also a standard script from the vocabulary repository, which transfer your staging data into the basic tables, such as concept, concept relationship, concept synonym, etc. And once your vocabulary build process is ready, you're creating pull requests and submit it to the vocabulary team. And the next step is to share your vocabulary with community. And as we understood previously, we decided to go through the survey work group channel and meetings as this vocabulary closely related to the expertise here. And now it's a chance to share the work with the community, to ask for the feedback and what you think, should we add it, whether it deserves to be added or it just, I don't know, not needed in the community. So I don't know. And this is a typical process. Maybe we should how to say, talk to the community at the community call level, I don't know, maybe vocabulary subgroup, and we are ready and open to do that. So this is the typical process we are
Now, it
following.
makes sense. And we certainly have other members interested in vocabulary on here. And Stephanie, I see you. I'll call on you in just a second. I'm going to finish a couple thoughts. So that's helpful. I think one of the things, based on what we're working on relative to the proposal, I do have some thoughts relative to the mapping and those. And I think you brought up some really good questions at the end that I want to make sure I understand. But I think one of the goals, and I don't know that we've figured out the actual how to yet, is that when we do these efforts to add the vocabulary, is how do we get rid of redundancies? So basically, and the process you've talked about makes sense. Oh, go ahead, Alex. Did you want to?
No, I will let you finish. I thought that you finished. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was to say the process makes sense. I just know one of the things we've talked about is like, are there things we want to keep from these bespoke vocabularies? Like basically, how do we get to a point where new vocabularies are sort of evaluated? We get rid of redundancies. We say, okay, this is the standard. And then that's what we integrate as the vocabulary. And I'm not sure where we start with that. And I know, Alex, probably you wanted to say something related, but also Stephanie had her hand up. So I don't know which works best with the flow. Stephanie, do you want to go ahead and go first, and then Alexander, you can go.
Well, Alexander may have a continuous question regarding what you just said. Maybe you should go
we
first.
can do that.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie also has her contribution pending, which is pretty much the same. So I'm 100% sure she has a lot to say. But Nicole, what I wanted to say is that, well, this is pretty usual, right? Except that all these vocabularies that have been added through the years, well, a couple of them, like UK Biobank, CoConnect, all of us, PPI before that, right? That was pretty trivial. And the only difference here is that we're doing this publicly and transparently and trying to get the input from the both working groups, the vocabulary working group and the survey working group. So this is in terms of the process, right? The problem that you are appealing to, whether it creates and adds a lot of redundancy or different ways of asking the same things, with redundancy and ambiguity. So I think that, well, exactly as Polina said, right? And Maxime. So part of it is already mapped to currently existing standard representation, right? And only if something is not standard, then it is actually promoted to standard, right? So we're not just bringing thousands and even dozens of concepts to be standard, but we are rather mapping this to the already existing ones. And apparently in diabetes, there is not a lot of standard, right? But even given that, there are mappings that are put in place. And then if there is no standard, then it's going to be promoted, right?
Yeah.
And I don't actually think that there are a lot of alternatives at the moment, right? So Loing doesn't do it a lot. And SNOMED doesn't provide a lot. Then UKB doesn't have it at all, right? Because it's just different focus. So this is pretty new, say, semantic space, right, for us. So there are not a lot of competing vocabularies in this field at the moment. So yeah, maybe it just partially reflects what you wanted to ask. But I think by doing this mapping, Pauline and the team actually address this redundancy. Well, maybe not 100%, because we still don't have the perfect solution and perfect approach for that. But at least by doing this mapping job, instead of just like bringing all alternative vocabularies of standard being standard, this is how we address this in this specific case.
Yeah, no,
so,
I
Stephanie,
really
sorry.
like that. And I really appreciate, the idea that this is a much more community-based endeavor than, again, sort of the previous work, which was much more siloed. So that makes a lot of sense, that it's again, getting out of the silo, making it more community-based, and filling in gaps that there are previously. So I definitely appreciate that. Stephanie, what was your comment?
So I have a couple questions. So as you map these concepts, you found that some of them do not already exist in concept tables. So you created a custom ones. Currently, do you just hold them as an extension to the concept and concept relationship table, or do you just map them, based on your custom codes? And secondly, I know that OMOP doesn't provide a place for keeping all these questionnaires and permissible answers for each of those questionnaires until you adopt version 6. But I was wondering, do you have a requirement where you keep track of what questions were asked and what answer response that participant provided until, or whether do you need to keep track of those questions at all? And then thirdly, we did this similar thing with the AI Ready data set where we collected survey questions from 4,000 participants. And those questions and possible answers for each of those questions were scanned through, and we used the standard mapping or standard vocabulary wherever we could. And when we couldn't do it, we created a custom set, and we create a pull request for Odyssey vocabulary table to consider adopting them. Perhaps if you already did that work and we're coming from one angle, maybe we could put our heads together and promote this extension of vocabularies until LOINC or SNOMED or all these standard organizations could adopt them for us to use. Those are my three. I know it's long.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, so much for your questions. At least I can try to answer some questions. Maybe I would ask Eric to help me with some details. For instance, I heard that internally, people who are using T1DX data, they previously used extension custom concepts instead of standard concepts from Athena because they do not exist. And it is about current state of T1DX vocabulary that is a hybrid vocabulary where the minority of concepts are mapped to existing standard entities from SNOMED usually, or LOINC. The same with values. They also mapped where it's possible. In some cases to devices, because there are a lot of diabetes-related devices and procedures. And the majority of concepts, especially variables or questions, they do not have equivalence in the OMOP, and we double check, and Eric checked before, so people checked a lot of times and they didn't find an equivalent. That is why they are suggested to be new standards in the Odyssey standardized vocabularies world. But it's not the all answers. So let me go further. Then in terms of usage of OMOP CDM 6.0, I'm not aware about this from Eric. Eric, maybe you can add more about ETLing of the T1DX data and current state.
Yes. So as of right now, the T1D exchange isn't mapped to OMOP by any means. We have additional tables that we didn't speak about today, which are the 5 core tables, a part of the T1D exchange. It's just like the patients, providers, encounters, conditions, and medications tables.
And measurement properly.
And well, we're not. Well, I'm just speaking on like what's a part of the T1D exchange tables. So there was a measurement table in the first version of the T1D exchange, but they decided to the T1D exchange organization decided to merge that table in between the encounters table, I believe. Pretty much the variables that were within that table were dispersed between the other 5 core tables that I just mentioned. So what I was doing was I was mapping those tables and variables to version 5.4 at the time. So I haven't did any mapping to version 6. I would assume that version 6 is currently available on the Odyssey website, which I could go back and refer to as I'm currently revising those mappings. And to add on what Polina mentioned, or just what I mentioned, yeah, it's currently not mapped to OMOP, the entire T1D exchange. So the purpose of this project is to map the T1D exchange to OMOP. So other users outside of the people that are a part of T1D exchange could actually utilize the Diabetes Data Doc portal, which is a software that we partnered with Children's Mercy in Kansas City for endocrinologists, mainly endocrinologists, to utilize with all the different standardized type 1 diabetes metrics that are part of the a part of the continuous glucose monitors devices. We're able to pull that data from the main APIs, which is like Dexcom Clarity and LibreView by Abbott. We're able to pull that data directly from those APIs, and it's shown immediately inside of the software. Something unique about this software is it's able to be linked to Epic, the health record system. So that's the main reason of us mapping it to OMOP. So people outside of the T1D exchange, which is utilized as like that's the way that we read the data, or that's the way that the data flows by using the T1D exchange format. So if you are an organization that currently don't utilize T1D exchange, or if you aren't familiar with T1D exchange, it may be a burden for one to actually get their data in that format. But as we know, many organizations typically use OMOP as a common data model, especially in pediatrics. So that's our reason of wanting to map this data specification to OMOP so others can use it for research purposes, or obviously mainly research purposes. So we really we call it an open source project that we're currently doing with the Diabetes Data Doc. So in a way to actually make this more open source and readily available to other users outside of the T1D exchange, we came to the conclusion that mapping to OMOP would be the best thing. And if an organization, for whatever reason, are a part of the T1D exchange, but they don't have, they aren't familiar with the OMOP format for whatever reason, then they're also able to map their T1D exchange data to OMOP. So overall, is to broaden the surface of this platform, and as well as type 1 diabetes research.
Type 1 only, or type 1 or type 2?
As we're planning to expand that into type 2, but as of right now, our main focus is for type 1, as that data is extremely limited when we're considering some of the metrics and the interventions and things that are created specifically to type 1.
I see. And have you considered fire profile to extract data out of Clarity from the Epic side so that you could call an API to get all those data points for the given patient?
Yes. Now, although I haven't really had that much involvement with the Fire HL7 side, the team at Children's Mercy of Kansas, as they were the originators of this platform, they considered all of these things before I was actually onboarded on the Lurie Children's side.
Okay. So the format, so there's an intermediate format that data gets pulled into from Epic Clarity so that the raw data itself can be ETL'd into OMA. Is that how workflow is from Clarity to T1 specific format table and then to OMAP CDM? In that process, do you keep track of the original raw data anywhere, or is that just in T1 format, T1DX format?
Yes. So, and this is all from my understanding with actually working with the downloading and uploading process. So downloading from the continuous glucose monitors APIs, which is Dexcom, Clarity, and LibreView, and uploading it, doing a manual upload into the diabetes data doc. Once we do that, that upload into the diabetes data doc, because the diabetes data doc platform is actually integrated with the health record systems, it's able to automatically match patients. So it has the MRN numbers that are part of the API. It matches it to that actual patient, their name, their date of birth, all those things, right? Because when you're with the API process, a part of the continuous glucose monitors, the end users, they sign themselves up. So the names might not always be right. Maybe a patient may forget or lose their login account, and they'll just create another one. Like it's very free will for you to be able to create your own account just to record your number. So you don't even have to have a real name in there. You can put your initials. So if we have that record number that's matched, or any type of PHI that's matched, the system is able to match it based on the integration with the Epic Health Record System. So what comes into place, because this platform is more so of a population-based. It's for a population-based approach to be able to create intervention plans and things as such. It uses the type 1 diabetes exchange format because type 1 diabetes exchange, they're also more geared towards like population health. So they have surveys in place where they're developing all these questions to understand from a population-based standpoint, like what type of what do people with type 1, what do they struggle with the most? Where can clinics come into place and have better workflows and develop better plans to be able to improve like the quality of care that's provided for people living with type 1. So when they have this in the place, they're actually able to share de-identified data with the T1D exchange, where they develop a report for these organizations for them to one, track their performance or in their quality, and maybe even improve both if there needs to be some type of improvement from a quality standpoint or performance standpoint.
So here the diagram, I see a step 5 where you do a perform QA check. I was wondering how you make sure the data that you ETL out matches actual raw data that's coming in through your T1DX data exchange. Do you keep track of raw data somewhere to make sure that what's coming out of that exchange is valid and correct?
Yeah, so and just like I mentioned, I don't really deal with like the raw data and things. Other people on my team who are like the originators, they would be able to answer these questions better than I would. But from my understanding, the raw data is currently stored into Databricks. So in Databricks by Azure, Microsoft Azure, is currently stored there. So the data is raw when it comes from the APIs. So the Dexcom Clarity and the Abbott APIs. Once you download that data, like it's all raw data. But the diabetes data doc, the way that the diabetes data doc is set up is prepared to be able to ingest that raw data in the two formats provided by Dexcom Clarity and as well as LibreView by Abbott. So it's able to ingest that data and it's able to store and calculate that data to a point where it's able to display the metrics that are currently available, part of the diabetes data doc.
I see.
Mhm.
I also would like to add that here on the diagram, step 5 contains QA checks related to the vocabulary itself. It is not about ETLing or raw data. It's about like duplicated concepts, duplicated relationships, or wrong relationship pair, or invalid domain, invalid concept class, invalid vocabulary ID, invalid relationship ID, or non-standard or wrong mappings. Such kind of things here. It's a QA for vocabulary itself, just a remark.
Mm-hmm. So we also created a concept out of the survey that was performed for diabetic patients. And it's not limited to type 1, but it's all diabetic patients. And we ended up creating a custom concept. So perhaps your work and our work from AI Ready that formed out of the Bridge to AI data generation group, perhaps we could create diabetic research appropriate extension until the terms get adopted by SNOMED or LOINC. Our poster will be presented in AMIA this year.
Oh, this is great. Eric, what do you think about collaboration with Stephanie on that?
I would have to discuss that with like my PI and my directors and things.
But in general, how do you feel about this idea?
From a personal standpoint,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, like we want to get these things standardized is based on the timeline that we shared. I mean, I would just have to. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the chat. I would just, have to, and I believe I've heard of AI already, but I would just have to, look into more detail about it. Like I can't, just give like an exact yes or no answer as I'm, representing one company, and I'm not like the ultimate decision maker. So, I mean, it sounds it sounds good though, and it sounds interesting as far as like the work that you all have done.
So in the previous slide, you mentioned that it's a work of 64 organizations. There are 64 different organizations that are actually using this?
The T1D exchange, yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and chime in. We definitely went way over time on this, but it's been good discussion, so I'm okay with that. I did have a couple of follow-up comments slash questions. So one was relative to version 6 of the CDM and the survey table. So that's something we have talked about on previous calls and as we've been working on our best practices proposal. It does make sense to have an additional table to store metadata in, but we're not planning on making it part of this first proposal. So the metadata there's basically recommended sort of basic first level metadata to describe the instrument that's being used to go into the observation table with the idea that we will get more information about an extension table like the one included in version 6 that we could keep metadata in so we don't keep overloading the observation table, but we definitely wanted to gather some more information on that first. So one of the things on the to-do list for the summer is to have Claire Blacketer join us and share with us a little bit more details about what was in version 6, especially specifically to the survey table, why was it rolled back, kind of lessons learned, and what we might pull out of it. One of the other things I wanted to mention was more specific to the recommendations that we're making relative to the part that most affects the survey or most is directly the survey, which is how you're mapping the questions themselves and what our recommendations are so far in the proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and steal this for a second just to share the slide, which I should have. Sorry for making y'all look at yourselves for a minute while I pull this back out. So this is just from the presentation that was shared out at the European Symposium. But basically, the process that we're recommending is sort of this three separate components, or you can think of the question and answer as a unit, and then the clinical finding. And so both the question portion and the response would go into the observation table with the clinical fact or finding from that then going into the appropriate domain table. So for a lot of what we see in our surveys, these are condition occurrence, measurement, observation. You also mentioned that you see things in terms of devices and medication. So those are our recommendations for parsing this. One of the things I thought was interesting, that was maybe the question you were asking at the end, was given the composition of your question and the composition of your answer, are you finding that you have more than one clinical fact to report? So you have the diabetic ketosis, that would be your condition occurrence, but as well as other things that are related to that question. So a measurement or something else. So I just wanted to see if I understood what those questions were at the end and see if there's any thoughts or discussion on, mapping multiple clinical facts that might come from a question answer combination. And we can go back to your slides if you want to share those questions you had at the end.
Yeah. Let me share as well. Screen. Oh, yeah. We've divided it into several groups. For example, the first one, it's like the meaning of the condition among the measurement concept. As I see it, for example, if we have arterial pH value during DKA, so the fact of the measurement of this means that the patient also already have a diabetic ketoacidosis. So as for me, it's one of the best approaches is to store this connection regarding this fact.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so you're...
Well, Nicole, so
Go
this
ahead.
is like the derived type of information, right? That is not like directly recorded, but you can still retrieve from the concept. I think from the context. I think this is not what you are specifically asking. What you're asking, how is it done model-wise? Whether we, in general, map the combination of question and answers into the events? This was the question?
From me or from Maxim?
No, from you, Nicole.
Oh, no, yeah, my question was, okay, so theoretically, you get the arterial pH value as an answer to question. So let's say the question was, during diabetic ketoacidosis, your arterial pH was what? And you get a free text for that value. So you have your question answer pair, which we would recommend putting in the observation table, right? You have your pH value, which would go into the measurement table. But do you also record, or is it just assumed that it's recorded elsewhere because maybe these are follow-up questions to the ketoacidosis? But because the fact that there was ketoacidosis as part of that question answer pair, is ketoacidosis as a condition also recorded as a fact as a result of that question answer pair?
Well, it's a great question, except, well, this specific case is the edge case, right? Because this data is like not directly, it's not like direct information, right? This is something that you still get from the context. And as you mentioned, that is most likely the additional questions, and this information is already coming from the first place. Paulina, do you have something to add here? So, like, it's like a usual question, right? So how deep we're gonna go, and whether we trying to recover as much information as possible or not, right? And I think that the answer mostly lies in the way how the registry is modeled, right? If you see that it's already coming from different questions above the list, then you would not map it again, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Correct. And what is interesting, in the concept list, there is no such a question. For instance, does patient have diabetic ketoacidosis? Yes, no, we do not have such a question, but we have such a measurement where we can assume that this patient had this problem.
I see.
So
otherwise you wouldn't even ask if it were trivial, right? If it were trivial, you would just like proceed. That is why you're asking. Well, that is a good question. Since we still have only have 5 minutes left, Alina, what do we actually need to proceed? I mean, what sort of feedback would be valuable? And
the most
do you expect it right now?
Yeah, the most valuable feedback. It's your thoughts about importance of T1DX vocabulary and its content, and what do you think? Should the community add and include this vocabulary into the August release? Should it be included, or what do you think? So from the ETL perspective, all these things can be discussed later, but in terms of vocabulary addition, we have this strict timeline, like in June, when we can submit vocabulary and vocabulary team can accept this submission. So we did everything that we should do, but the community also encouraged to provide us with a feedback. What do you think? Should be added or not? And maybe Eric will post a bit later on the forum about this vocabulary contribution, and also please welcome and comment on that post if you would like to share your thoughts about the importance of this terminology in the Odyssey standardized vocabularies. Am I answered your question, Alexander? Because I'm a bit nervous.
I think so, but I would immediately direct this to Nicole. And I think what we actually need here is a sort of like the green light, right? Because it seems to me that the justification is clear. It is used among the network of multiple organizations. They're building their ETL to OMOP common data model, and they want to have this vocabulary as a official part of Athena, right? So in this respect, I think it's clear. What this working group can comment on is whether the approach that is used is actually a good approach or propose anything else, right? And given that at the moment we have all these nice recommendations listed out, I think that if we evaluate this work against these recommendations and then provide some comments whether it's good enough or whether some other approaches could be used, that would be the green light or not, right? So
yeah, I think we definitely need more than this moment to think about it a little bit and kind of revisit what we've recommended in the proposal. But again, I really appreciate the way you've done this and following protocol and also making it involving the community in the process. One of the questions I have, and of course we're in the land where sooner is better than later. What are the concerns about getting this approved for August as opposed to the next vocabulary release, since they're doing them twice a year? Like, is it possible to give the community a little bit more time to think about this, or is that going to cause major problems for your project?
I think working group has a time till the end of the month. I don't know, Alexander, could you please say more about timing? But as I aware of, you have to.
So I think what I can say is that because there are users and specifically Eric here who represent the institution and then the network of institutions that are trying to build their ETLs based on the vocabulary that is in Athena, right? So that might be actually a question to Eric. So whether there are dependencies or plans or anything else that we would, or the working group, the vocabulary working group that has taken this decision would need to know in terms of the implementation plan, in terms of the downsides of the fact that it might need to wait for another release, right? But this is the general users won't start early and do this, right, and start using these concepts and get the concept ideas assigned and so on and so forth. But I think Eric can answer specifically on whether when the ETL work is planned, whether they can wait for another 6 months for the next release, which is February next year.
Yeah, February, I mean, that is cutting it very, very, very close, especially considering the length of time that this grant, by the time the grant will pretty much be concluded by that time. So, I mean, ideally, it would be best if we could, for this August rollout. Could you, what am I answering all of your questions? What was the other question that you asked, Alex?
I think that is pretty much the only question that I asked. So, Nicole, that is time constraint in some sense because there is a grant and then there's a project going and they actually need to build the ETL work rather sooner than later. And if we can do some offline type of review and maybe some additional round of review and the feedback collection, and I can definitely help with that.
Okay.
And see whether we can put some recommendation from the working group.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, based on discussion today, it sounds reasonable, but I also think we'll be setting precedent. So we also just kind of want to think if there's anything we would tweak about the process and not that you would necessarily have to do it, but I think we could also endorse it, but say, oh, for future endeavors, we would also like to see this or something, something like that. Just keeping in mind that this would be precedent for how we're wanting to move these vocabulary requests forward so that, again, we're getting away from the silo. And you've already done a great job of starting that process. It's just like, is there anything else we need to recommend to keep it moving in that direction more so?
Right, that would be great. So
Yeah.
we're anyway running out of time, and I think
Yes.
if Maxine will be able to provide the presentation so that others can review this and provide some feedbacks in terms of how we actually do it, whether the model and the approach in general is good, and then maybe if Nicole will be available for some like short sync up so that we can see whether the working group can come up with some recommendation before the end of the month, because we really need to put it in pipeline for the vocabulary release.
If we can get something on soon. I am going to be on PTO starting July 2nd, which of course is after the end of the month. Fridays are my best meeting days, mostly because I block my calendar out in hopes of getting writing done. But I'd be willing to meet to discuss this so we can just make a decision. So reach out. Let's, if there's anybody else who should be on the call or anyone else in this discussion that wants to be part of the call. And yeah, I'm all for making this decision as soon as possible.
Yeah, that would be really great. So
thank you so much.
So let Maxime send out the slides, and then we coordinate this in email so that everybody who wants to provide the feedback will be invited as well.
Yeah, sounds good. All right.
Makes sense.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to wrapping up the discussion on our next call and making a decision. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Have a nice day. See you all.
Bye-bye.